Wenda, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Sister Karen. Good evening, everyone. I am Wenda Chisholm, member of the Family Life Ministries at the Gregory Park Baptist Church. On behalf of the pastor and the members of the Gregory Park Baptist Church, I would like to extend greetings to everyone who have joined us in this virtual space, both on Zoom and YouTube, to another of our forum on issues affecting us here in Jamaica. We are delighted that you have joined us. We are so grateful that you have accepted the invitation to join us this evening. Let us look to God in prayer. Let us pray. Lord, as we gather here this evening, we want to thank you for your goodness and faithfulness towards us. Thank you for your power, Lord, your provision, strength, peace, guidance, and direction. Lord, we ask that you forgive us for falling short of your will for us. Help us to be obedient to your word and to submit ourselves fully to you. Lord, you have taught us how to love. Help us to love as thou dost love. Lord, as the presenters deliver this evening, we ask that you give us listening hearts and attentive minds. We pray that at the end of this evening's proceedings, lives will be transformed. Lord, you know the desires of our hearts and the things we would want to happen. That you may grant them unto us, Lord, according to your will. Heavenly Father, may we hear your voice clearly through your speakers this evening. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Welcome again, everyone who has joined us on Zoom and YouTube to this our special welcome to our presenters from CISOCA, Bureau of Gender Affairs, and the Women Incorporated. They will be introduced to you shortly. The theme for discussion is the shadow pandemic, vulnerability, violence, and its victims. My people, our team of dynamic presenters will be exploring this theme for us. We look forward to an informative, productive, and thought-provoking session. I now hand over to Brother Lance Grant, who is also a member of the Family Life. Will introduce the panel to us. Brother Lance.
Thank you, Sister Wenda. Good evening, brothers and sisters. To help us shed light and better understand some of the discrete impacts, the vulnerable, the violence, and the victims, the Family Life Ministry takes pleasure in facilitating such an important discussion and discourse. And in so doing, we are indeed grateful to have with us representatives from the Center for Investigation of Sexual Offenses and Child Abuse, CISOCA, and the Bureau of Gender Affairs, a division within the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport. From CISOCA, we are pleased to have Inspector of Police, Florine Clark. Inspector Florine Clark, with over 15 years of dedicated service to the Jamaica Constabulary Force, JCF, comes to us with a wealth of knowledge and experience as a community-based police practitioner and a professional social worker. She presently specializes in the investigation of sexual offenses and child abuse. She's a trained performance management appraisal trainer of the St. Andrew Central Police Counseling Center and co-founder of JCF Intersecondary School Sports Association Peace for Champs campaign. Our second presenter is Miss Joni James. And she's at the Bureau of Gender Affairs, as was laid out. Her area of focus is with victims of gender-based violence, specifically intimate partner violence victims. She's a passionate social worker who aims to empower each victim in an abusive situation to be empowered in order to create healthy and happy individuals, and by extension, healthy and happy families and society. Now we eagerly await the information to come and the discussion to ensue. With this said, I now hand over to our moderator for the evening's proceedings, Sister Dorrit Campbell. Over to you, Sister Campbell.
Good evening, everybody. I was waiting to be introduced, Lance. Good evening, everybody. Globally, 1 in 3 women experience physical or sexual violence, mostly by an intimate partner. Before the health pandemic, there were reported cases of 240 million women and girls aged 15 to 49 in just 1 year. Since the pandemic, violence against women and girls, especially domestic violence, has seemingly intensified in some countries. In other countries, we are told that there may be a decline. Sexual harassment and other forms of violence against women continue to occur on the streets, in public spaces, on the bus, online, and particularly in the homes. In many instances, survivors have limited information and awareness about available services and limited access to support services. And then, of course, the element of shame prevents some persons from even wanting to report what has been done against them, the extent to which they might have been violated. In some countries, resources and efforts have been diverted from violence against women response to, of course, the immediate COVID-19 relief. It is no wonder, therefore, that the United Nations Women recently labeled the increase of violence against women as a growing shadow pandemic. And what does that mean? It means that the more intense COVID becomes, the more this other pandemic seems to be intensifying as well. In other words, they're saying that there is a correlation between COVID lockdown measures and the increase in violence against women and children, because in the lockdown measures, many victims find themselves closer, more in proximity to their abusers than if they were not under lockdown. And I suppose through the lockdown creates a kind of frustration that sometimes evolve or escalate into violence. In some countries such as France, Argentina, Cyprus, and Singapore, domestic violence emergency calls and reports have increased by more than 30% since the onslaught of COVID. But for us in Jamaica, we read the horror stories in our daily newspapers. We see horror video clips on social media daily. And for many of us, it is at our doorstep. It is a lived reality. And there are many of us who suffer in silence. The data suggests that nearly 15% of all women in Jamaica aged 15 to 49 who have ever been married or have a partner would have experienced physical or sexual violence from a male partner. But those are the cases that are reported, and this data is dated. Perhaps Joni or Maureen may have more up-to-date data. But what about those which have not been reported? The issues with which we contend involve not just physical and sexual violence only. There's also the sore points of emotional and psychological abuse. And some people may argue that there is religious abuse or spiritual abuse as well. That I want to see how that pans out in the mix. The fact is, however, gender-based violence is a human rights violation. And violence against women and girls is a public health crisis with detrimental impacts on the victims and the survivors, their families, and particularly the children and the communities. I don't think many of us would have got over the most recent one. And somebody may ask me, which one is the most recent one? Because they happen so closely on the heels of the other. But I'm referring to Natalie Dawkins, since we, in a sense, interred her today. This is indeed a shadow pandemic growing amidst the COVID-19 crisis, and we need a response. We need a collective response. However, in order for us to respond appropriately as a community of believers, we need to understand what we are up against, or rather, what is up against us. What is the situation in Jamaica? Are we worse off than we were before COVID? What makes our women and children so much more vulnerable than any other categories of persons? What steps have been taken to address the issue of domestic violence in Jamaica? What steps have been taken to address the issue of violence against children, particularly sexual violence against our children? How can we know when somebody is being abused, or whether physically or sexually? What can the church do to respond appropriately to sexual violence against women and children? How and where can we go to report instances of abuse without repercussion? These and more are the questions that we have before us this evening. And we have Inspector Florine Clark from Sissoka and Tony James from the Bureau of Gender Affairs. They were already introduced to you. So I'm just going to get right into it. And for just both of them are social workers, so they can bring a psychosocial perspective to their discussion this evening. So Inspector Clark, welcome. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your willingness to share with us this evening as a community of believers. I'm going to start by asking you, what is the situation in Jamaica? Are we worse off than we were before COVID-19? And in responding to that question, you can go into your presentation, which I hope will be about 5 to 10 minutes in length. And perhaps after your presentation, I may want to probe you further before we bring on Ms. Joni James. What is our situation, Florine? What's happening in Jamaica? Are we as bad as France and Singapore? The data in some instances say differently. What do you say?
Well, probably my best response is to say that we are looking at a shadow. I guess Jamaica is not as bad as we think it is, meaning that we do have agencies who are ready to respond to the cause of violence against children, violence against women. We do have agencies who are going out there to share in sharing what is the red in domestic violence, what is the red in the violence affecting our children. And in addition to that, we are in a preventative mode. So this afternoon, in representing the Center for the Investigation of Sexual Offenses and Child Abuse, I can more speak with what is affecting our children. And so since the pandemic, what we have seen is an increase in pregnancy affecting our young girls. And certainly this is sharing with us that there is more for monitoring our children who are probably left at home, not properly supervised, because we are seeing where parents are still going out to go and get the 2 cents to protect, to give the children a shelter and I mean the basic amenities. But yet we still need to realize that in doing all of that, we have a responsibility to ensure that at all times our children are protected. And so with this increase, CISOCA, the Center for the Investigation of Sexual Offenses and Child Abuse, is on the move in ensuring that we continue to share with the populace that our children's best interests must be taken in consideration. And of course, we do know that in saying that we are pointing to the Child Care and Protection Act of 2004. Well, violence, we are seeing it because I am speaking in relation to sexual violence. And so daily we see our young girls turn up with being pregnant. And whilst we continue to call on our stakeholders, so of course we partner with the Victim Services Division of the Ministry of Justice and the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, which holds an office at CISOCA headquarters in Kingston at 3 Woodland Road. We are saying to the church, which I'm addressing now, and Jamaica at large, that all of us have a role to play in protecting our children. Who are the perpetrators? Family members within the homes, fathers, brothers, cousins, you know, neighbors. Sometimes parents aren't seeing the red flags, and so what you find is that they often leave children in the care of neighbors, and eventually what happens is that these children are sexually assaulted in some way or another. Commonly what we see affecting our girls is the offense that is categorized sexual intercourse with a person under 16 years. And of course, this is highlighted in the Sexual Offences Act of 2009. And it states that a child under the age of 16 years old cannot give consent to sex. Looking at biblically, we know we speak differently. And so sex, I tell children when I go in to speak with them and parents that sex is for adults, persons who are responsible to manage their emotions and their feelings. And so our adult males need to understand that they have a role to protect our children and not to abuse them sexually. And you ask, what is the situation? Are we really protecting our young ladies? Are we as women protecting our young ladies? Is the church protecting our young ladies? All of us have a role to play in mandatory reporting. Once you suspect that a child is being abused, you have a responsibility to report. Failing to do so, you can be fined $500,000 or convicted in the court of law for up to 6 months, both fine and conviction. And my question is it a rule for the police or is it a rule for Jamaica? And when I say Jamaica, I speak of the church, I speak of the community. Gone are the days when we thought about the whole concept of it takes a village to raise a child, because a lot of our community members now, I mean, they see, but they are blind. They hear, but they are deaf, and say they are not within the whole role of reporting the offenses being committed against our children. CISOCA will continue because this is what we do. We are an avenue that allows our children to report the crime committed against them, and we are open to Jamaica at large to report the offenses committed against us, sexual offenses in general committed against adult women and children, because our boys are also being abused. What we do at CISOCA is that we seek to interface with our customers to find out what is happening and to identify the offense. We have a medical staff with a resident doctor, that's Dr. Cheryl Burke, who is on board to do our medical examination and to ensure that we have exhibit prepared, that's a part of the exhibit line, prepared for court, and to compile our properly compiled case files to be submitted to the court of law for our perpetrators to be tried. Now, I must remind your church group that we have a CISOCA in every parish, and St. Catherine, which is your parish, is blessed to have 2. So there's one in Portmore and there is one in Spanish Town. CISOCA is headed by Senior Superintendent Charmin Shand, who is livid in ensuring that perpetrators are brought to justice. And so I call on the church this afternoon, you have invited me to speak, that you too have a responsibility to help us to save our children from these perpetrators who seek to rob them of their innocence. We will continue to serve, protect, and reassure the people of Jamaica, and we will continue to embrace our cause, a force for good, and we will continue to ensure that our victims, whether women, children, men, or boys, are protected. And so, in light of that, we do good victim care. We keep updating them as to the progress of their cases, and when they come to us, we do our best in ensuring that they are comfortable and for them to open up and to speak to us so that we can help them to unearth the trauma and eventually to share with us what we intend to do, investigate to unearth the truth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Inspector Clark. Yes, charged there to us to be more responsive to what's more alert and more responsive to what's going on there. I can attest to CISOCA as one of those, I sometimes refer to it as aggressive, but not aggressive in any negative way. Once you make the report, they leave no stone unturned, and they are giving the reporter the benefit of the doubt. They're not hitting and butting and suppose it's a lie and suppose it's not true, all right? They prefer to err on the side of caution, and she's reminded us where the offices are located. So if we have reports, and I'm sure she'll tell us further, if we choose not to go to the offices, what else we can do. She's also pointed out that during this period, we have an increase in violence against women. Well, not women, girls, minors, young girls. And some people will say, oh, that's not violent. If they are not above 16, if they're not above 16, it is violence. It is the worst kind of violence because sometimes it is their circumstances that make them vulnerable, their social circumstances that make them vulnerable to these sexual predators. So we want to be aware of that. She's also calling upon the church to be a little bit more aggressive in its response as well. And I'm happy that you mentioned that, because one of the sticking points for me, and I'm going to be making people comfortable here, whether you're in this space or you're watching on YouTube, one of the sticking points for me, Inspector Clark, is the way the church remains silent sometimes while the women in the church are suffering. Some persons don't want to hear. If you look at it, we have 54 persons in this space right now. I would have expected some thousand, but it is a kind of taboo subject that some persons don't want to talk about, and the church doesn't want to talk about. But it is something that we have to talk about if we want to build Jamaica back better. Thank you very much, Inspector. We're coming back to you to flesh out some of what you're saying. But I'm going now to Ms. Joni James, who is also a social worker, but she's from the Gender Bureaus, and so she from the Bureau of Gender Affairs. I thought we had renamed that, Joni. And so she works very closely with women, and perhaps she's in a better position. She's better positioned to speak to domestic violence against women in Jamaica, and also other kinds or other forms of violence against women. What is the situation where that is concerned in Jamaica? Tony, over to you.
Well, we've definitely seen an increase in regards to reporting of domestic violence in Jamaica. Could you allow me to share my screen?
Go ahead. The host should have made you a co-host.
Right, right. So good afternoon, everyone again. It's Johnny James from the Bureau of Gender Affairs. And the Bureau of Gender Affairs, we are located at 5-9 South Oden Avenue, Kingston 10. We were first established as the Caribbean National Machinery in 1972, where we advised the government on integrating women into national development. In a brief, We are one arm of the gender division under the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, along with Women's Center. We are guided by our 4 guiding principles for our national policy for gender equality, which says gender equality and social justice for all, political leadership and commitment, multi-sectoral approach and partnership, and we need those from the churches, which is the FBOs, civil society, NGOs, as well as we need a participatory approach by every Jamaican, the average man on the street corner, we need them as well. So we were formerly known as the Bureau of Women's Affairs. However, in 2016, on March 21st, we were rebranded as the Bureau of Gender Affairs. So we're all about gender equality, in simple put, empowering our men, empowering our women. Everybody have a fair seat at the table. So let us discuss the topic of gender-based violence. So gender-based violence is any act that is directed at someone because of their sex, gender, that results in physical, sexual, or psychosocial harm or suffering. And we know sex deal with a male and a female, while the gender is the roles that the man play and the role that the woman play. So simple put, gender-based violence affect both men and women. Females are most time the victim, however, males can be victim as well. So here are some statistics, and Ms. Campbell highlighted a few. So 1 in 3 worldwide women have experienced physical and sexual intimate partner violence by their partners or a non-sexual intimate partner. As well, internationally, 1 in 5 males will experience some form of gender-based violence. The UN declared Jamaica as the 2nd biggest murder of women, something called femicide. So 1 in 4 Jamaican women. So if we have 4 Jamaican women, 1 of us will experience some form of physical violence by our male partner. And 1/5 of Jamaican women report that being sexually abused before reaching the age of 18 years. And the main perpetrators were friends, which were accused to 22.9%, strangers, 16.5%, and family members or other parents or siblings, which is 15.9%. Let me adjust this. So 16.9% of adolescent girls aged 15 to 19 years agrees justify if a man hits his wife for neglecting the child. Something to bear in mind. So exposure to violence as a child is linked to the risk of intimate partner violence. Boys who grew up in a context of domestic violence situation will feel emasculated in the process, as they feel they are incapable of protecting their mothers. And you know that is a natural thing for a man to do, to protect his family and to protect the woman around him. Is it interesting to know that women who enter into relationship with younger partners have a higher increase of intimate partner violence, while on the flip side, women who enter into living relationship under 19 years also may be victims of intimate partner violence. So the concept of domestic violence is defined as any violence that occurs between an individual who is related to intimacy, blood, or law. So basically, domestic violence is considered as family violence, and it can impact directly and indirectly. And we see from the caption on both ends of the screen where it's impacting the individual directly, the woman being the aggressor and the man being the aggressor. Indirectly is the child that is seeing the violence. So domestic violence is one source of violence in Jamaica, which results in death. So there are different types of, most of the times people will interchange domestic violence and intimate partner violence, but it's separate. There are different types of domestic violence. There is intimate partner violence, which is spousal abuse. There's sibling abuse, there is child abuse, and there's elder abuse. And our main focus will be on intimate partner violence. So intimate partner violence or spousal abuse is described as any violence that occurs sexually, physically, emotionally, psychosocial, or financial by an intimate partner or spouse, as well as by an ex-intimate partner or spouse. So your ex-boyfriend, your ex-husband. And there are different forms of abuse. There's the physical, the sexual, the verbal, the financial. And we know the physical involves the beating, the burning, you know, the tying up, and the sexual in it regards to unwanted sexual practice such as rape, you know, one partner not don't want to engage in the whole sexual act and another partner forcing them to be involved in the situation. Verbal abuse where both of us, both sexes, both the male and the female may be a perpetrator. So the female may be the one, you know, who verbally attack the man and the man don't know how to deal with this. So, you know, so you retaliate physically, or it may be the man who may attack the woman verbally and then retaliate physical as well. So financial abuse is where one refusing to give support to the family. So one partner goes out to work and decides that, oh, my money is mine, it's not supposed to share for the family. They need it, you know, the other partner need to cover that aspect. Or one partner refuses to assist in the other partner. So the other partner said, oh, we're in a situation, but I am not going to go out and seek to help. You know, that is their responsibility. So you refuse and, you know, you're neglecting your family in that sense. So there's something that is called the cycle of abuse. So there's a tension building, the incident. So the tension building in simple terms is where, you know, the perpetrator may be thinking of situations, you know, start to go into his head, start see things. So he sees his partner with somebody and start to speculate, you know, assume that there is some form of a relationship or the partner is flirting. And then there's where the incident will happen. So you see the partner out there and talking to the young man and he starts to speculate things. So when he gets in, you know, he gets aggressive to the partner because he assumed that there is in a relationship, and there is the period where he starts, you know, making excuse, say to the partner, oh my, if you weren't speaking up to him or laughing with him, I would be thinking all these things. And then there's a calm period, you know, where you'll sweet up the partner, you know, buy nice gifts and so forth. And the partner will say, you know what, it makes no sense me seeking help elsewhere, you know, it's just a one-off situation, you know. There's no need for me to report it to the police or to share with a family member so I can seek help. And there are some red flags in an abusive situation. Some red flags persons need to look out for. If you're in a relationship and somebody's insulting you in private and public, that's definitely a red flag. If somebody's checking on you very frequently, definitely a red flag. If someone threatens to hurt you and your family, definitely a red flag. Makes you engage in uncomfortable sexual activities, a red flag. If you want it, not a red flag, but once it's something that you're not willing to participate in, it is a red flag. Control your money, limit your movement, and blame it for the abuse is definitely a red flag. And there are some effects that domestic violence will leave on the individual. Persons may have insomnia because they're thinking about the situation. So even when they leave the situation at night, you can recall, you know, the perpetrator coming with the knife at your neck and, you know, threatening that if you leave them, they will kill you, as well as persons may have low self-esteem, depressed about the whole situation and probably have suicidal tendency and thought, and then it may lead to death as well. That's another area. Low work productivity. So persons were passionate about their job, you know, persons become withdrawn, as well as it may lead to HIV, STI, and other sexual transmitted disease based on the fact that the perpetrator is having unprotected sex outside of the relationship or outside of the marriage and coming home back now and don't want to protect themselves from that, so they may bring in the disease, as well as a breakdown in healthy communication may lead to prostitution, miscarriages, and intimacy. So why don't the survivors leave? Most time persons ask, so why don't the survivors leave the situation? So the fear of retaliation, fear that the person will come and stalk you because they know where you work, they know your family members, where they live. You don't think that there is no hope. So and the means of lack of economic support, you know, you're not working, you're dependent on this person, as well as concern for the kids. If you leave the kids, then the person will retaliate on the kids as well. And sometimes persons believe that, you know, that they love the partner. So, you know, that based on the fact that they love the partner, that, you know, the partner will change, as well as stigma in regards to custody battles. So that's another thing as well. And also lack of support from family and friends, which is definitely one of the greatest things. Most of the times we have seen where persons who become victims, there's no form of support system. There's no support from the church, no support from their parents, no support from the sibling. There's nobody they can turn to. They don't have any resource person in their corner. And how to help a victim become a survivor. So here are some do's and don'ts. Do ask, if you see the signs, you see that the person is not being, you see the markings on their body and so forth. Do ask, don't wait for the individual to come and express themselves, because some of the times when you're dealing in this situation, you don't know who you can trust, and you don't know if you confide in somebody, if a church sister, if she was shared with another church sister, as well as if it's shared with the pastor, if all of the members of the church will know as well. And, express concern. Don't judge and blame the person, and listen to the person. Don't pressure him or her to leave the individual. You want the person to be empowered, because if you pressure that individual to leave, that person may go back to the individual. So you want her to be empowered to say, this is the last straw. I am no longer going back to this person. As well as offer help. Don't give advice. I always say I will start not to give advice, as well as, what I would say, these are my recommendations, and, we'll list them out and the person can decide what best fit their situation, as well as support his or her decision. Don't place condition on the support. When the person is ready to leave the individual, there's no form of support there. So support his or her decision. And these are some policies and legislation that we're guided by. And Miss Narrator, Miss Campbell, that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Joni James. In that brief presentation, you have run the gamut of emphasizing the importance of the participatory approach in responding to or resolving violence against women or gender-based violence. And you've given us some startling statistics there. You highlighted 4 types of abuse, and you pointed to the cycle of abuse. Interestingly so, the blame game, and you make me lick you, and you exactly. It's never your fault, right down that guilt road there. And when when that approach is not taken, then there's the approach of the seduction, beat her up and then friend her up. No, Lord. Okay, then you pointed to some red flags, 7 red flags there. And then you spoke to the effects of violence on the person. And you explored some reasons why women remain in violence-plagued relationship. There are some of us who think it's so easy to walk away, but there are so many socioeconomic, sociocultural, socio-emotional factors which cause persons to feel paralyzed in those kinds of relationships. It may seem simple for others on the outside, but not so much for the persons within that kind of abusive space. And of course, you shared some ways in which we can help. So basically, you've covered an awful lot there. Perhaps I should say an awesome lot there on gender-based violence. And of course, you've pointed to pieces of legislation that Jamaica has put in place to guard against gender-based violence. But it begs the question, if we have so many pieces of legislation, why is it that we are not seeing the dramatic decline in GPBC as we should? Why is it that we are not seeing the dramatic decline in sexual violence against children as we should, with so many laws in place? Is it that the laws do not have peace? So we're going to explore some of this further. But before I go any further, I want to say to the persons, we have 63 persons here now, perhaps 60 plus us. We have 63 persons here now, and no doubt they'll have their own questions. I'll point you to the icon at the very bottom of your computer screen if you're on your computer. Not sure where it is on your smartphone, but on your computer, there's a smiley face there which says reactions. You click at that and it will take you the raise hand button. You go to the raise hand button and you raise your hand and I will acknowledge you. If you choose to put your question in the chat, I will explore the chat every now and then to see if there's any question there, and I will convey those questions for you. So let's go back to Inspector Clark. Johnny has given us some red flags, some things that women should look for when they think they are in an abusive relationship, or when their partners seem to be getting overly controlling and seem to be having physical or emotional or mental violence against them. What are some of the red flags where children are concerned?
Okay, so you'll find that you have a happy child running around, communicating with parents, and I'll touch on even school as well, because sometimes that's where they pick up the signs. And you realize that all of a sudden the child has become withdrawn. The child may be locking away him or herself in his room, you know, not being open up to you as the parent as before. You know, we see some children sleep more. We have some children who are probably more aggressive in how they communicate with their peers or to you, parents or teachers. These are some of the signs that you need to look out for, that the changes that you see in your child. Some children, they become fearful when, for example, the perpetrator is around. Look out for those. Those are red flags that you will see up front. Now, I'd really like to share that women sometimes, women who are we are referred to as you know, the hands that rock the cradle. Sometimes we really turn a blind eye because of this connection with what Miss James just shared. So this is the person providing for me. So who is my daughter to come to tell me that he sexually molest her? That is not important. Who will provide for me then? And so Representative Sissoko, I'm calling out to women, calling out to parents in general. Listen to your child. At Sissoko, I am reminding us that we investigate to unearth the truth. Therefore, when that child is taken to us, we will record our statements during the interview process to ensure that we get the truth. So if it is not so, somewhere along the line, it is going to come out. So parents, and I'm not just calling on women, no, parents in general, listen to your children. If they said to you that the individual touched them on their breast or bottom, make your report. That's what the law requires you to do. Make that report. If the child is saying to you that this individual keeps sending messages in my WhatsApp, it's time for you to come to speak to the police. Let us identify whether or not an offense has been committed, and let us investigate with a view of putting the perpetrator before the court of law to answer to the offenses that were committed against our children.
Okay, Johnny, I want to explore the denial and the fear factor. Well, not the fear factor, the shame and the denial factors that sometimes prevent some mothers from accepting that their husbands would have abused their stepchild or their stepchildren. I came from a community where I know of all three girls in that family would have been violated by their stepfathers, and the mother knew. They were church people too, but she couldn't come to grips with it. She couldn't accept that it occurred, and so she simply denied it. It almost drove her insane. She never reported. She was in denial all the way because the shock of it. How do you help a mother? It's not that she doesn't want to believe her child, but how does she accept that she's sleeping with a man who is molesting her child? How does she accept that? How can counselors or even the church help her to come to grips with that to the point where she wants to report that?
It's the same thing in regards to being in a domestic violence situation or a toxic relation. You will hear women will say, you know, when we're good, and when we're bad. You know, if I can just fix those off days, then everything will be okay. So in her mind, it's the same situation. You know, you just have a little issue. You know, honey, she will say to the daughter, keep it down, man, keep it down. It's just a little one time. You know, I'm not doing it all the time. You know, and she probably even with the girls. So the one of the denial, she would say, why are you wearing those short skirt? You know, you're not supposed to wear a short skirt, and we have man in the house. You know, what you're doing, you try to attract your father. You know, why are you dressing like that? So is that situation there? In the denial, as in the situation, they're not ready to leave the situation, they're not ready to accept the situation, and then that is an issue. I want to add as well, you had spoke, Ms. Campbell, in regards to there are so many legislation and why all these issues are happening. It is sad to note that most of the situation, the victim does not take the legal route. So they may report the matter to the police and believe that's where it stops. So they don't go about seeking a protection order, or they may report the matter to the Bureau of Gender Affairs and they said, oh, we just want, you know, I just wanted to talk to, just talk to him. Him not so bad, you know, him just need a little counseling. And it happened the next time, and you know, and they say, oh, the counseling never worked, let me try something else. And it happened another time, and you know, and she said, you know, sometimes I'm good, you know, if I'm looking at the brighter moment. So, you know, it's just a one-off situation. If I don't do that, you know, if I cook his meal, you know, all of this wouldn't have occurred, you know. So they look at situation of how to fix. And as woman, which is understandable, we like to fix things. We are fixers, you know, we are the ones that like, you know, and you know, we are the nurturers. So we try to create that family and we want that family unit. So we do everything, you know, ignore the red flags to have that sense of family.
Okay, you want to weigh in on that too, Florine? And while you're weighing on that, think about this. I don't know what obtains in Jamaica, but I have noted instances where the victim becomes the villain in the court. And as a result of that, you have teenage girls who, even after they've reported it, they might not want to show up to reaffirm what they have reported, because somehow a defense lawyer makes them into a victim, all over again, and also villainize and demonize them. And to avoid that kind of trauma again, they simply just drop the case. Have we now, do we now have legislation that protects the victim from again being exposed to that kind of demonizing? Florine? I think we have lost Florine. Florine, you're frozen. Florine, you have to unmute.
Yes, I'm back. Sorry, I lost you a while ago.
Did you hear the question?
Right. So I had some connection issues a while ago. So I'm saying that in communicating with our children, in interviewing our children, we seek to find out who it is that they told first, how long ago you shared that information, and if so, what did the parent or caregiver do? And failing to adhere to the law, we spare no effort in taking those parents before the court for failing to report. And so I'm taking this opportunity to remind our parents, do not allow that perpetrator, who may be that source of support for supporting the family, to prevent you from making that report, to support your children and to prevent your child from being further abused. The law states that if you fail to make the report, you should be brought to books and be placed before the court for failing to report to the Office of the Children's Registry.
So the children, do they have to go to court, particular teenage girls? Do they have to go into court?
Well, yes, they do go to court, and so that is why
They're
what we
protected, or they're protected.
I am going on to answer you, madam. So that is why what we do at Sisoka is what we call good victim care. For certain, every victim that walks through our doors, they are referred to the Victim Services Division of the Ministry of Justice for counseling and preparation for court. They are also referred to the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, who do their aspect of the intervention as well in preparing them for court. So our children, if it is that they are under 13 years old, they are assessed before they are sent to court to state whether or not they are ready for the court process, whether or not they know the difference between truth and lie. We ourselves as police officers, we pay particular attention to victim care. So we continue to communicate with our victims because you know, of course, that there are times when our cases may take a 2-year period before it goes to trial. So we continue to maintain that relationship. I can go on my phone and communicate with my victims and their parents directly to say, I went to court today, this is the process. The next court date is so and so, this is what is required, here is what is happening in court. Now, there are situations when our victims are adamant and their parents that they want to come to court nonetheless, and we will take them with us, and then the judge will directly speak to them to say, well, I'm happy that you show up, but you are not ready for court yet until X time. So continue to communicate with your officer. We do make arrangements to pick up our victims and to convey them and to transport them to court to ensure that they are safe and comfortable. So those are some of the processes or procedures that we do in terms of victim care. And we continue to communicate with them on a Mother's Day. We share Happy Mother's Day and all of that. So we ensure that even though there are boundaries, we have a relationship where they are comfortable and understand that they are interacting with officers who they can trust and who care about their well-being and their safety.
Okay, we're going to take some questions now. Remember, you raise your hand and I'll acknowledge your hand. And those on YouTube, Ms. Karen Bartak will take your questions and read them for us. There's a question here from Beatrice, Deacon Beatrice Otten. Is the economy causing more domestic violence, especially during this time of the pandemic? Is the economy causing more domestic violence, especially now? Joni?
To answer that question, there are various things that is causing an increase in person reporting. So the fact that, you know, both persons are home now is another issue why persons are reporting. So they're in the space and, you know, the perpetrator is constantly attacking them. So that's another issue. Persons getting laid off, being unemployed is another reason. Sometimes we have cases where the man may, you know, he gets unemployed and he don't want to go home, and the lady asks him, where's the money? So because of that, he gets aggressive towards the victim. So there are various reasons why there's an increase in person reporting.
I want to put another spin on that too. We have a church, we are not only expected to minister to the victims, we are also expected to minister to the villains. I'd like to understand what goes on in the mind of some of those whom we regard as villains. How can we really and truly minister to them? Because the truth be told, frustration when you lose your job and you have all these demands, and you know, it's almost, it eats at your self-confidence. It eats away at your self-esteem, and perhaps sometimes you feel like, oh no, that I can't provide for my family. My wife is going to walk away from me. My girlfriend is going to walk away from me.
Right.
And perhaps some of those are the reasons violence is resorted to. What goes on in a villain's mind, and how can we help them? How can we minister to them as well?
I always say that, a perpetrator was once a victim before. So they have been in the situation in which, either they become a victim or they become a perpetrator. So some perpetrator, there are two types of perpetrator, I would say. There's one that wants the help, but don't know how to get the help because, the whole stigma, the shame that is associated with it. And there's one that doesn't think that he's doing anything wrong. It's perfectly normal. The issue is wrong with the victim, If the victim does what he says, all of this wouldn't, occur. But I sympathize for those who want the help and don't know how to get the help. But I must say there is help out there. There is help because the Bureau of Gender Affairs, we have a perpetrator program as well as restorative justice. There's help. You can do mediation sessions, counseling session. You can definitely seek help. And there are time to time, there the perpetrators that reach out to us, seeking help, like, they're in the situation and they said, I have an anger issue with my partner. I get upset and I need the counseling and so forth. So I would say to the individual to reach out. But there are several things that goes on into an individual's mind. Each situation is different. It's based on the situation that the perpetrator is in. Sad to say, sometimes the victim may cause all of this. So the victim may be the one that, is pressuring the individual and they don't know how to deal with the frustration. So the victim is the one who's, verbally attacking the abuser, and the poor man don't even know if he speaks back. She will say, oh, so you become a woman now, you're speaking back to me. And because all of this, all is his mind, he don't know how to express the situation. So he gets physical. And, sometimes the victim themselves, they were once in the situation and this is what they associate as being love. So, if the man does not beat them, then they feel like they don't love them. So the man may not want to beat the victim, but the victim forces the man to do it.
Okay, I see another question in the chat, and I was thinking about the same thing because I was thinking about that incident down the Hagley Park Road there, where the woman took it to the man, So the question is, do women abuse men? Let me go and read it exactly as it is. Do women abuse men, and if so, how?
We're sad to say, and I think we need to listen to this. We are one of the biggest perpetrators when it comes on to verbal abuse. We are always attacking the man. Oh, you're good for nothing. You can't provide for the family. And you say demeaning things. And when you say these things to the man, what do you expect the man to do? Sit down and take it? Yes, ma'am. These things that, ladies, I always say, be careful of what you say. They have the term that say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me.
Not true.
Be careful of how you express your frustration to your partner, because that may lead, you don't know if your partner was raised in an abusive situation and he's trying not to be that person, and because they're constantly attacking him verbally, then he does not know what to do and he gets physical. So be careful of the words that we say, and not only for the man but the kids looking on, the children that are in the situation. The boy will say, oh, that's how I'm going to be a man, because I'm not going to allow this to happen to me. Or the daughter may say, oh, that's how you treat a man, you diss them in that sense. So be careful of what we say in front of our kids, and be careful of how we speak to our partners.
Okay, and then there's this other question: what is the statute of limitations for rape, regardless of the age of the victim?
I cannot speak on that aspect.
All right, so I guess my question is
Inspector Clark.
All right, so regardless of the victim, there's no age factor here. Neither is there any year factor. So if the rape is 60 years old, come with it. We investigate to unearth the truth. We will record your statements. If you can find someone who have that information, meaning that you shared with them when it happened, we will also interview that person. The difference between a recent case of rape and one that is long ago is that there's a possibility that you will have DNA evidence to match up for the new one, and so the proof to support your statement would be readily at hand. But we have investigated rape for more than 10 years and we have had good results.
So there's no statute of limitation. But in the Me
Right,
Too
so there's no
campaign
statute of
recently,
limitation.
in the Me Too campaign recently, right? I hear a lot of women, not even the men. There's a lot of women I hear on social media say, why no? Why no? Why she never come forward long before? You know that's going to be the issue here in Jamaica, because sometimes I feel that we women are our worst enemies. Somebody's going to ask a chorus of, why no? Why should we wait until 20 years down the line? Why would a woman wait so long anyway to come forward against a sexual abuser? There may be a number of reasons. Any one of you can weigh in on this one. Why would she wait that long?
All right, so let me jump in quickly. When I am not remembering her name now for some reason, I guess the brain is getting old. When the young lady in Portmore in March, when she was murdered and sexually assaulted, we saw cases coming to us in Sissoko because of that situation. So sometimes you find that persons are afraid to speak, but because you are hearing persons in the media speaking out against a particular case, it may push you to come forward. It may be also that you have found within your circle a friend who you have shared that situation with, and the person is saying, I will support you. In addition to that, it could be that the perpetrator is no longer close to you. The person may have migrated abroad, so you believe the fear factor for you have been lessened, and so you will seize the opportunity to come to share. But as Miss James said prior to you speaking, there are many, many factors that may cause our victims to make the decision of coming in to share. It could be that you are a child and you were under your parent roof and your parent was the perpetrator. Know that you're on your own. You are saying, listen, I am empowered to go to and share what happened to me. So let's not seek to, say persons are lying or anything like that, because only the person who experienced the trauma knows what it is like. And so you share that many times we are our own enemy as women. And I believe that we really need to move away from that and support each other as women. So, because remember, and I will continue to share, we investigate to unearth the truth. So if it's a lie and that is discovered, don't worry, we will charge you and put you before the court of law as well.
Okay.
Miss
Yes,
Campbell,
Jody.
I
Go
want
ahead,
to
Jody.
add as well. I may say it's when the individual feel empowered. Being in a situation where you're a victim, you may not feel empowered at the time, but over time, as time progresses, you want to, bring light to the situation, because this perpetrator may be doing it to other persons, and other persons are becoming victim. So the individual reach that state where they feel empowered, this is the time. And let's look at a person that is may in a managerial position, the victim may feel like no, she has reached a level that she can share this information, because this person was in higher ranking and she wasn't able to express the situation because God would have believed her.
Correlations.
Right. So I always say when the victim feels empowered, we should empower the victim in that sense and don't shadow that situation and say, oh, but you have many years in which you wanted to report the situation.
And then there's also, I think you had mentioned it earlier, Joni, the victim is made, a young victim made to feel that it was her fault, and that any kind of a report would mash up the entire family. She keeps it until when she thinks the family is resilient enough to deal with it, or when she don't care about mashing up the family, because it has had such a serious impact on her life that at some point she needs to exhale. So until proven otherwise, as you said, it is our responsibility, particularly as a community of believers, to empower anybody who comes forward, whether it was yesterday, 20 years ago, and to do the right thing, giving them the kind of support that they need to get through what is still a difficult situation for them. Brian Johnson has a bit of parcel in the chat. Brian, you are here. You can speak for yourself. I'm tired of hearing my own voice. I'm going to allow you to ask your question and make your observations. Go ahead, Brian. Brian?
Hi, good afternoon.
Good
Hear me?
afternoon, Brian.
All right, so there was a very public case in the media that is being tried right now. Without going into the details, because of course it's now still under investigation, there are 3 items that the case has brought out. The first was dealt with a while ago about the statute of limitation. There is none. But the second point is there is a deterrent to be able to prove these cases versus the risk of being sued for libel by the accuser. How does one approach, or how does one ensure they have a strong enough case before approaching the police to file charges? And the third question is, victims are afraid of being targeted by some savvy defense lawyers, especially for public figures. What are the measures do you have for the legal protection of these victims?
Right. So Brian, I want for you to repeat the second question you asked. I didn't hear that clearly. The first question, Ralph.
The first one, wow, I think I may have lost the text on that one. Give me a second here.
It's the second one. I think you said that the first was answered, and the second you were asking
Let me get back to the chat.
That's a victim
Yes, deterrent.
face.
To be right, the
When
ability to prove the charges.
Yes, yes.
Versus the risk of being sued for libel by the accuser. What is it? I guess even if you aren't a lawyer, in that regard, how does one ensure they have a strong enough case before they approach the police?
I would not be able to share how does for the victim, in terms of the question you're asking, how do they have a strong enough case? What I can share with you is that when they come to us, we are asking them to share with us the story of the truth. Tell us what happened, how it happened, when, where, and why. And so we will visit the scenes, and when we go to visit our scenes, we're matching your story, because you have told us a story, with the scene that you have shared with us that we have written down in our statements. So when we are recording our statements, we do take a picture of the scene as well. So we write, you tell us the name of the street, we describe the house, we describe the room, and so on. So what we want for you to tell us is exactly what happened. So that's the only story I could ask for the victim to come to share, exactly what happened. We're not asking you to create anything, to tell us anything that you think the person may have been thinking. We are saying, tell us in a consecutive order everything that transpired. We don't want you to make reference to something that you believe may be so. Nothing like that. Exactly what transpired. What did the person say? What did the person do? Where were you at the day, date, time, and place? Do you know the name of the individual? How long have you known this person? At the time when the offense occurred, could you see this individual? What time of the day was it? So those are some of the questions that we will ask, because like I shared before, we do not want you to make up a story to come to us. What we want you to tell us is your experience of what happened, nothing else.
Does that satisfy you, Brian? I think there was another element to your question. It concerns the degree to which a witness may be protected. Was that what you were
legal
asking?
protection for the
Yes,
victim.
we did ask that one as well. And so we do have a witness protection program. But of course, you do know that we cannot compel the witness to go on the program. We share that this is what we have. And if it is that you are willing, then we will take you through the process. But I shared before that there are other processes in that we do. If it's a child victim, that person is also as the intervention of the Child Protection and Family Services Agency. In other groups, all persons coming to Sisoka to make a report, they are referred to the Victim Services Division of the Ministry of Justice for them to help them to unearth their trauma, and besides helping them to manage the trauma and to develop their coping skills, they also prepare them for the court process. So they will let them know that this is what you are to expect when you go to court for trial, and prepare them mentally to manage the situation. And of course, we are not leaving them alone. We're always there to take them through the process and to share with them that all that is required is that you answer respectfully, listen carefully, and remember that all we're asking you to do is to share the truth. So we know that there are strategies put in place by other members of the legal fraternity, but nonetheless, we prepare them to understand that all we're asking is to share your experience, tell them what you told us. That's what they are relying on.
Okay,
excellent.
we have 10 more minutes. We have 10 more minutes to go. I don't see any raised hands. Andre Atkinson in the chat wants to know if the police knows that a child was impregnated when underage, will they move on it without a formal report?
Good question, Andre. But Andre, whilst we can inform, we can move on it, but listen, there's not much move that we can make, because without a statement that is taken from
the
that.
Statement is there, sorry, the statement is very much there in front of the child.
No, man. We must have a written statement from our victim and their parent. Or we must have, let me not even mention parent right now. We must have a written statement from the victim to say what happened before the police can arrest and charge the perpetrator and put them before the court of law.
So even if the statement says that it's that man over there,
unless the offense was committed on the view of the police. So we arrest on view, we arrest on the information of the third person, which is the statement, and if it is that we had a warrant that was prepared for the arrest, which would mean that we would have had a statement ready, already prepared, right? So if the offense was committed in my view, I can go ahead and make my information, but I still need the support of that statement from the victim as well. So it's crucial that the populace understand the importance of giving a statement to the police.
Okay,
so
and I'm going to press you a little bit more on this, Florine. I'm pressing you a little bit more on this.
All right.
A 13, let me go down there. So a 13-year-old child said, that's the man who got me pregnant. Does she need to give you more statement than that? Especially now with the kind of technology to do DNAs. Does she need to say more than that? Does she need to put herself through experience again? That's the man who's pregnant. What else does she need to say?
We will take her in and we will record her statement and we will arrest the perpetrator and put him before the court of law. No, you know, importantly, what is beautiful about the Child Care and Protection Act, if a parent is not available, we can call on the children's officer from the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, or a fellow social worker or a teacher, right? If the child is in the care. And the act speaks also that we can find an independent person to sit in, a credible person to sit in that interview, and we can interview the child and put the perpetrator before the court.
Okay, do we have any questions from YouTube, Kara?
Only the one I had provided Sister Dorrit in the chat.
I didn't see that one.
Which was the one around can women abuse men and how
okay
so?
oh that came from YouTube.
Yes.
All right, okay. Tony, I want to go back to second chances. If a woman was hit once, this is the first time it has been done, that a woman has been hit by her husband and she reports it. And well, the husband wants a second chance on It won't ever happen again. That's a promise given. What kind of advice would you give to such a woman? I mean, I would say, pack up and let him see a time, no give him a second chance. What would you say?
So she reported to the police, but it has not been brought to the court, right?
No, because they make it up. Well,
Okay,
you know,
okay.
some mediation went on. Perhaps the church intervened and did some mediation, and perhaps our pastor tell her that, you know, we don't want this is going to be a big disgrace and the church because the man is a deacon or something like that. Perhaps, you know, whatever it is, but what advice would you give to such a woman from your perspective as a social worker?
My perspective, I would
Does
say
he get a second chance? Get a second chance.
I don't know.
Victoria.
I would say to the individual, because I'm not in the situation. So what if it's a situation where she provoked the individual, then she can look on it at that aspect. And you know, the surrounding the situation. If it's so she would best know what to do in that situation. Because I can say, oh, give him a second chance, and then you know the situation. She knows the individual. Yes, she knows the individual more than I. She's the one who is in the relationship. So I would say to her that, you know, you're the one in the situation. Do you think he deserves a second chance? Or was he, you know, verbally abusive before it becomes physical? That's another aspect to look at it. So it's based on the situation that you look and make a decision like that. But, you know, as I would say, there are perpetrators out there, you know, they may have made a mistake, not necessarily that they want to be this person, they want to get help. So for situations like that, I would say, you know, see that he's getting the help first. Definitely see that he's getting the help. Don't rush into the situation. It's like in any relationship where your partner probably, you know, most persons they involved may have cheated or, you know, they have done something wrong, and, you know, you see if that there's improvement. If you're seeing improvement, but I always will say to persons, once you're in the situation, report the matter, because you don't know who you're dealing with. I will always say to the individual, report the matter, because it may be just this one time.
The real question I want to go to, I open the door to get to that question, is does the Bureau have any kind of facility for mediation, a space where there's mediation, where the counselors can bring the woman to determine whether I provoked it, is not violent by nature, and therefore I can give him a second chance, or I didn't provoke this. This is something I had not seen before, and this is something that I don't think I can live with. Does the Bureau have that kind of space for that kind of mediation, which would bring the partners or bring the woman to where she makes that kind of decision?
Even before perpetrator program was launched, we dealt with situations where, you know, the victim wants, you know, the abuser to get counseling, and we both work with the individual, you know. So that's definitely something that we have always been open to do. So once you're in a situation, and you may not be certain if you're in an abusive situation, you just see certain things, and, you know, you want to get another, you know, somebody else to speak on the situation, somebody to speak, you know, you can definitely come to the Bureau of Gender Affairs. The social worker will be provided to help and assist.
Okay, and there's another question in the chat. We are at 7:18, so I have 2 more minutes to go, and I want to give both of you at least a 30-second synthesis, so to speak. This question says, it's coming from Kelleen. Kelleen wants to know if there are shelters available to men or women who are being abused.
Well, we have a national shelter that is in operational now, so which is a temporary fix. Not everybody there's an assessment that is given to the shelter. Not everybody is suitable for the shelter. So I would say sometimes the victim, let's say an individual that is working, so she would not be best fit for the shelter, but there's other solution in which she can, you know, stay in the night and then go to work. So yes, we do have a shelter operating.
Okay, good. Then I want you to both of you can say to us now, to what extent your organizations can partner with us, or perhaps I should put it the other way. To what extent can we forge partnerships with you, so in case we come across any of our Sunday school children who may show some of the signs. We're not so sure because we're not trained psychologists or social workers, but based on what you have said, we see some signs which make us want to think that the child may be in an abusive environment, or we see some signs in a woman or a man. The red flags are there that make us feel that this woman may be is being abused, or this man is being abused. What kind of a partnership can we forge with your organization, Florine, with your organization, Joni, so that we can not just report, but we can work together, access whatever resources you have, and you accessing our resources in terms of improving the quality of life of victims?
Okay, so my response is, you're saying not just what I'm saying. Continue to report, report, report. In addition to that, Sissoka provides an avenue for public education, where like these means where you have invited us to come and share, we do so in schools and churches generally. So feel free to call on us at any time to come to share with your church population. Now, of course, we do know that the police, the church, in terms of whether pastors, elders, man, woman, or child who has committed an offense, Sissoka is ready and willing to come in to investigate. And that's the type of partnership that we want for the community to understand that our children are our future and they are God's gift to us. Our children they're an heritage to the Lord, and so we have a responsibility to protect them. Now, we know the role also that women play. Women play in the household, especially in this our community where we have many households that are single-headed or headed by women only. And so it is important that when our women are abused, that we encourage them also to report, whether it is at our local police stations, and if it is one that warrants Sissoka's intervention, they will take them to us. We are adamant that we will continue to do good victim care and to ensure that when our victim come into us and our child perpetrators, that we will treat them all individual respectfully, and we will take care to ensure that we investigate to unearth the truth and that they will be satisfied at the end of the day that we would have done our best.
Do you have numbers that you want to share with us? You want to leave with your audience?
Certainly. I reminded you earlier that we have Sissoka in every parish and Twin St. Catherine, one in Portmore, one in Spanish Town, and we are at 3 Rootven Road, Kingston 10. That's up the road from JPS.
Yeah, but do you have numbers, like a hotline or so that we can call?
079 is the number.
Can you repeat that for me, please?
You can go online for the other Sissoka offices numbers. Thank you.
Florine, can you repeat the number? I don't think everybody got it.
926-4079 for Kingston, and for the other Sissokas, you will find their numbers online.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Florine. Joni, your synthesis, and you can also give us any numbers you want to, and also tell us how we can partner with you further. As a community of believers, how can we partner with the Gender Bureau Affairs further in the interest of the growth and development and empowerment of our women?
I like that you asked that question. Surprisingly, a lot of churches are not open into the Bureau of Gender Affairs coming into their spaces. So that's definitely a way in which you can definitely partner as well. We have other initiatives. We have financial literacy. If your church is interested in, for persons to know how to manage your money as well. We do other sessions as well. We do sessions on sexual harassment, human trafficking, child abuse. So we can partner in that area as well. So definitely we're open to partnering with you guys. I can give you my CUG number. It is 276-7156. That is 276-7156. And if anybody wish to, report a situation, or you may not, know if you're in an abusive situation, you can reach out to me definitely, and we can take it from there.
Okay, so thank you so much, Joni James and Florine Clark, Inspector Florine Clark, and Ms. Joni James, social worker from the Bureau of Gender Affairs, for taking your Sunday evening when you should be preparing for work tomorrow, and join us here at the Gregory Park Baptist Church, and to share with us your thoughts and your expertise in violence against women, gender-based violence, violence against women and children, under the topic, the shadow of the pandemic, vulnerabilities, victims, and I forget the other part of it. Lisa will tell you what the other part of it is. Over to you now. Who am I handing back to? You, Lisa, or Lance?
It's violence, victims, and vulnerability. Thank you very much, Sister Doris.
And vulnerability.
Yes,
am I handed back to you?
We're handing right over to Sister Alicia to do the vote of thanks.
So good evening, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks for this evening's event. On behalf of the pastor, Reverend Carl Henlin, the Family Life Ministry headed by Sister Lisa Henlin, and the entire Gregory Park Baptist Church, I would like to extend sincere thanks to our most eloquent presenters for taking time out of your Sunday afternoon to be with us. To Inspector Clark, you have given us a lot of information. You informed us of some of the issues arising out of this pandemic, issues such as increase in pregnancy. I'm sure many of us didn't even realize that. Who the perpetrators are. You also reminded us that the church has a responsibility to protect the vulnerable persons in our community and in other surroundings. You also told us about your victim care and your victim protection. Inspector Clark, we really thank you for all those information. Miss Joni James, you have said a lot. You have informed us of the different types of abuse, the effects of violence and the red flags, the cycle of abuse. You also mentioned reasons why these survivors don't leave, how we can help, the do's and the don'ts. For example, you mentioned in the don'ts, don't blame. And many times when we blame, we find that you're not of much help to the persons. Instead, ask, express concern, listen, and offer help. Ladies, from what Miss Joni said, I think we now need to be cautious of some of our actions, because we now realize that we are also provoking the men. So we have to be careful of our tone, as we realize that we trigger some of these abuse. To our moderator, who's a member of our church, member of our church council, and an educator, Sister Dorothy Campbell, who so ably led us through these discussions and kept us in tune, Sister Dorothy, and informed as you go through the questions. Thank you so much. I'm sure that through all the questions that you've asked, that we learned a lot from it. To our technical team, thank you so much for dedicating your time to ensure the smooth running and success of this evening's event. To all our participants who joined us via Zoom and YouTube, thank you so much for your participation.
A special recognition to the Family Life Ministry for their vision and creativity in conceptualizing this event, which I believe is so important to us during this time. Sister Dorothy, in her beginning, started out by saying that there's an increase in violence as we experience lockdown due to COVID-19. So I believe that this event is very timely. Thank you very much, Family Life team. Again, to all our participants, thank you very much. I'm sure that we are leaving this evening with a wealth of knowledge, a lot of information, and with the intention to keep our eyes and our ears open to assist. Thank you so much, everybody. Just a bit of reminder here. Please be reminded that the JBU's virtual evangelistic service starts tonight. As a matter of fact, in a few minutes, and it goes on to Wednesday, starting at 7:30, and nightcap will be circulated at 8 o'clock this evening. Thank you, everybody. I now hand over to our pastor, Reverend Carl Henley.
Sisters and brothers, I join in saying thanks to our special guests who have come, and also to our moderator for having led us so ably. And now we close our meeting in prayer. We celebrate with everybody. This has been a great forum, a great discussion. Share the link from YouTube to your friends and family. It's on our YouTube page, and we look forward to having everybody share it with others so we can all learn together. Let's pray. Almighty God, we thank you for your loving care, your keeping graces upon our lives. We thank you for this world in which we live. Amidst its challenges, so many opportunities to be instruments of healing and wholeness toward others. We thank you for this time we have shared together, for our presenters and the way they have opened themselves to us. And then we pray that the things we have heard may become for us opportunities to extend the love of God in this world in which we live, making us more aware and then more competent and committed to do the Master's bidding. Go with us now, God, as we separate one from the other. And we pray, may the blessing of God Almighty, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit be upon us all, now and forevermore. Amen. Right, good night, everyone. And we look forward to joining the other event. I hope we can keep up another hour and a half at the other event. God bless you all.